During this lame duck session, Ohio lawmakers will have one last chance to pass bills introduced during the past 2 years. Any bills that are not passed will die and have to be introduced again once the new General Assembly is seated in January. Two former Ohio lawmakers, Republican Jean Krebs and Democrat Erica Crawley, joined me earlier this week to talk about what they think might happen during the lame duck session.
Well, I think you'll see a lot of late nights for session, a number of bills being on the agenda. And of course, you'll see probably a Christmas tree bill or an omnibus bill that has a lot of different pieces of legislation in it.
Mm-hmm. And my sources tell me that what you're going to see is every time a bill hits the floor, that you've got 5 members who are going to offer amendments on it to make abortion illegal, declare personhood for fetuses, and it's the only way that Speaker Cupp can deal with this is simply not to call on them, but that's going to cause tensions within the caucus.
Mm-hmm. Oof.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a nasty fight here in the lame duck, you think?
I think it might. I mean, some sources tell me that I know the Senate isn't looking to ban abortion from what I've heard, but I know that the House is looking to, have a complete ban if possible, as well as try to ban contraceptives. So we'll see how this works out. I know that there is just even rift in the Republican Party or the Republican caucus on those issues as well.
Yeah, and once again, this goes back and your gentle listener and watcher is going, why is this happening? It's happening according to my analysis due to the post-partisan, it's the first past the post partisan primaries we hold in the springs on even numbered years, where basically folks are elected out of a very small majority of the general population that shows up to vote in the primary, both parties. And for the Republicans, they are fearful of getting on the wrong side of the right to life organizations and having mailers and flyers put out, Facebook ads put out against them because they are not strong enough on that issue. And that's why on these things, that's really going to tie the chamber into a knot. So it's even going to get worse looking ahead to the next General Assembly because you've got, Speaker Cupp is gone in, 45 days, more or less. And, the next speaker, party to be named later, player to be named later, we don't know who that is, but they're going to have to govern for at least 2 years. That's going to make it very, very interesting in the House. The Senate, of course, is a much more collegial atmosphere, but they're going to face not dissimilar pressures also.
Mm-hmm. So we know that Republicans heading into the General Assembly next year, they'll have a supermajority. And what does that mean going forward for the next 2 years?
I mean, I think you'll continue to see extreme bills. If an abortion ban doesn't pass now, I think you'll see someone try again. Same thing with contraceptives. The Democrats have lost 4 seats, and so they will continue to just be on the defense and try to offer amendments where possible, and then that won't be accepted, and just really trying to call out the extreme nature of some of the bills that will come and how that's different from where the majority of Ohioans are on different issues.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Gene?
I think that both parties suffer from, because of the primary system, it encourages only those with the most non-compromising attitudes towards things to be able to advance up the food chain. And I think this is going to also lead to difficulties also in coming up with a compromise. I go back to many years ago, there was a state rep named Jennifer Garrison who was looking to run for statewide office, protege of Ted Strickland. Ted backed her. It got squashed because she was pro-life and pro-Second Amendment. And she was down in Marietta, Athens area. You remember her now.
I remember her.
And that got squashed. So both parties are now going for this increasing ideological purity. The problem is that the vast majority of the general public is not ideologically pure.
Right.
They have conflicted they have conflicted views on almost every issue that the General Assembly deals with.
Well, I think you'll also see, I mean, to that point, gerrymandering and redistricting come back up again, as we just voted on unconstitutional maps. And so that conversation will be ignited again, coming into the new General Assembly.
And when that does come up this time around, we won't have the Supreme Court backstopping it, or likely won't. You can't say exactly what the Supreme Court's doing, but we do know that in the past, the Republican justices that were there, they didn't think the current maps were unconstitutional, so they won't be backstopping it. So there's a Supreme Court factor at play, right?
There is, however, a cautionary note to my Republican colleagues is that if they go a half step too far on anything, reapportionment, anything, there is the constitutional amendment avenue. And I know there's some chatter out there that they're going to go ahead and try to, do some restrictions on the constitutional amendment process. I would caution them because in Nevada, they just had a vote on adopting ranked choice voting. It's a two-step process out there. And the incumbent Democrat Governor Sisolak opposed ranked choice voting. He lost. It's important to note that the Democrat for U.S. Senate won. And my sources say this cost him between 7 and maybe 10% on his vote totals. It was so. In other words, trying to restrict the rights of the voters and restrict their voice. That's a dangerous game. I would not advise my Republican former colleagues and current friends to go down that path very far.
I would agree. I can't remember if it was the 133rd General Assembly or the 134th where I was serving, where there was conversation about trying to limit the ability to put issues on the ballot and take voters' interests away. And so that got squashed. But I could see it coming back up again.
But the other thing is that after like January 15th, all eyes in the State House are going to be looking to Cincinnati. Why? Because that's where the trial's going on about House Bill 6 et al. And my sources, I don't know if they're good or not, but they tell me to expect 4 indictments coming out, between now and the trial. So if those start to come out, once again, there's a lot of moving parts here for this, and I would encourage my Republican colleagues to be very cautious about anything that they propose or do, because they feel all powerful now. But that you saw what happened. You've heard me before on Columbus on the record. Back in February, I said my GOP colleagues nationally were overconfident. Well, they were. Okay. You should always go into every battle prepared to have a stiff contest, and they're not going to do that, I'm afraid.
But we know redistricting is not the only issue where there might be a referendum. There might be a referendum on abortion.
Absolutely.
There might be a referendum on marijuana use. There could be all kinds of things that come up that I'm not even remembering right now. But do the Republicans, since they won so big, I mean, they walked away with most everything. Do they have a mandate on those issues now? Is that what Ohioans want?
I think they do. So I think the majority of Ohioans and polling shows don't want us to keep moving forward with an abortion ban or putting more restrictions in that space. So what you will see, I think, even in lame duck or next year, is more support and investment in maternal health and maternal mortality and morbidity, and trying to change that course. I mean, we have one of the worst states in the nation when it comes to infant mortality. And so I think you'll see Republicans, where they were unwilling to invest significantly in that space and change policy. I think we'll see that happen to try to balance the scales as they move forward with additional restrictions on abortion.
To try to head off those referendums, yeah.
Won't work.
You don't think?
No.
Why?
They'll still the progressive end smells blood on this issue, and they will move heaven and earth to do. And if they're stupid, they'll do one that allows for late-term abortions. If they try just to simply codify Roe into the Ohio Constitution, they will win. And the question is can the progressives keep their troops in line to keep the people of Ohio are mostly a moderate conservative group, okay? And I think that this could be the only time I'm surprised in politics is when people don't take the smart path. And I'm expecting folks to hopefully always take the smart path, but I'm often surprised.
Yeah, but we've seen in some issues where the Republicans have been able to push them off or keep them off the ballot. They've successfully been able to do that. So if the Republicans feel like they have a mandate on an issue and that they can keep something off the ballot, won't they? I'd be cautious for them on that. As you know, I've been very active in bringing ranked choice voting to Ohio, and we've been approached by some very deep-pocketed funders, some of whom were involved in the recent Nevada thing. The Nevada thing cost them $20 million, and they got to go back and do it again in 2024 because they have to approve constitutional amendments twice in Nevada. So they're dedicating $40 million just to Nevada. They're looking seriously at Ohio, Missouri, Nebraska, some other states. And for them, $80 to $100 million is a rounding error in their personal wealth. Okay. Well,
okay, so they will do this. I mean, they don't care. I mean, they don't, if they decide to do this, and the Republicans, we've given the Republican caucuses, they can enact ranked choice voting right now in Ohio. And we've encouraged them to do so. But if they choose not to,
yeah, I don't think they will.
Well, we give them the opportunity out of respect and comedy.
Well, on another line of questioning here, Governor DeWine, he's had some ideas out there that he's found hard to get through this General Assembly. Most like the gun reform plan that he had, 17-point gun reform plan, it basically went nowhere, and they shut it down. So what's it going to look like in the next General Assembly when it's more Republican? Is it going to set up some kind of fight between Governor DeWine and the lawmakers in his own party?
I don't think so. I think the legislators that will come in will do the same thing and not address any kind of gun violence, anything that has to do with the Second Amendment that they believe will be taking rights away. So I think if the governor is trying to move this 17-point plan that he had before, it will go nowhere. I mean, I think it's a good thing for him to talk about. I don't know. I mean, he just got elected another 4 years. I don't know what he has to lose in continuing to push this issue, and he would have support on the Democratic side for sure.
Well, that kind of leads into what I'm thinking. I mean, Governor DeWine is 80.
No, 70s.
70s.
Yeah.
He'll
75.
He'll be 80, about 80
when
at the end of his term, right? Yeah. Okay, so he's probably, this is probably close to the end of his political career. If it's not the last stop, it is one of the last stops. So maybe he will react differently in this. You don't think?
He can react all he wants, but the General Assembly, he can propose, and the General Assembly disposes. That's always been the cliche around here, and we saw it happen. I mean, what's going to change between now and then? I mean, he's a lame duck governor,
right?
Okay, what you've seen so far is what you're going to get. You're going to get more of it.
Do you think he's going to have to fight back a lot of extreme Republican, far-right plans?
I think he will, but I mean, they have the General Assembly, the Republicans have the vote to override any veto, so I don't know what he can really do.
Yeah, and as one wit, texted me after this election, the Senate Democrat caucus can now all meet in a minivan. Okay, 7-passenger minivan. Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
Okay, so, the governor, he might get all 7 Democrat votes in the Democrat caucus of the Senate. He's not going to get 12 more Republicans voting for anything he proposes in the Senate. So no.
Do you see a battle playing out on any particular issue with this? No,
I don't.
No. It's like when Reagan sent troops to Grenada. I mean, it's just overwhelming force here.
Right.
I
mean, I think what you will see, depending on what comes out of the legislature, what they pass, I think you'll see voters, if it's too far to the right, we know it won't be anything far to the left. So if it's too far to the right and the governor can't do anything, I think we'll see something different in the next 2 years as far as who we're voting for, who's coming in office to represent the constituents. I think as soon as you continue to move far right, the pendulum starts to swing back the other way. So,
well, the last question is control of the party nationally. We're seeing, former President Donald Trump has been the person driving the agenda for the National Republican Party for the past 4 years. Do you think we're starting to see maybe some people ask questions about that, Republicans asking questions about that, and we're starting to hear that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and maybe some other people might come in and kind of fill that space. So what are we looking for nationally? What kind of things should we be watching for and in the texture of Ohio's politics?
And none of that matters. Because on the way into town today, I saw new signs in my community, Trump 2024. He controls about 35% of the Republican voting base in a primary. Well, in a 5-way primary, once again, it goes back to so many of our problems come from that partisan spring first past the post primary structure. This is what got me into advocating for ranked choice voting. And why I actually think that the Republican caucuses may actually begin to look at it and go, there's some benefit here.